Hare Krishna. Am I audible? Hare Krishna. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. It's visible.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my throat is not good.
Oh, okay. So we'll start with the Mangala Saran. Om Ajnani Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yudapata Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vidam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paljana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusuti Devi Pranamami Haripe Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. Thank you for attending today's session. So today we'll be looking at Gita 9.28. Last week Patita Taran Prabhu covered 9.27. So for this verse, we'll try to recite it. Subha Subha Phalevam Mokshase Karma Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mamupaishyasi Subha Subha Phalevam Mokshase Karma Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mamupaishyasi Subha Subha Phalevam Mokshase Karma Bandhane Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Mukto Mamupaishyasi
Upaishyasi.
Okay, anyone want to try recite the verse? Hello. Tatsaini Mataji, you are muted.
Yeah, I just muted.
Okay. So anyone wants to recite the verse?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Shubha Shubha Palayevam Mokshasya Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upashyasi.
Okay, nice Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hare Krishna, I try.
Okay.
Subha Subha Palad Evam Mosha I Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuttama Vimukto Mam Upaisahi. Hare Krishna. Not
Hare
very
Krishna,
good.
Mataji. Okay, next. One last question. Okay, we'll look at the meanings. Subha Subha Phale Evam Mokshase Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mam upaisyasi. Subha from auspicious, Ashubha and inauspicious. Phale results evam thus moksha se you will become free. Karma of work, bandhanai from the bondage, sannyasa of renunciation, yoga the yoga, yukta atma having the mind firmly set on, vimukta liberated, mam to me, upaisasi you will attain. Translation: in this way you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. So actually this verse is in connection with the previous verse, 9.27. Yat karosi, yat jasnasi, yat yosi dadasyat, yat tapasisi kaunteya, tat kurusa madarpanam. Krishna tells Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you perform, whatever you offer, do everything as an offering to me. So that is the only way we can be liberated from the fruits of action. Even in chapter 2, 2.47, Krishna says, Karmanye vadikaraste ma phalesu kadachana ma karmaphala heturur ma te sangosto karmani. Then in 2.48, also Krishna says, Yogastha kur karmani sangam chakta dhananjaya siddha siddhyo samavutva samato yoga uchate. So these verses appear in chapter 2, like in the second half of chapter 2. As we know, in chapter 1, Arjuna starts to complain because he's worried about the results of his actions, like when he is forced to kill his relatives and friends. So he's worried about incurring sins. So to convince him, first, in the first half of chapter 2, Krishna explains about the distinction between soul and the material body. So Krishna explains how the soul does not die when the material body is slain. Then in the second half of chapter 2, Krishna explains about how to be detached from the fruits of action. Though we are engaged in performing our actions, we can still be detached from the fruits of our actions if we are not bound by either favorable or unfavorable results. Because regarding karma itself, there are three types of actions: karma, akarma, vikarma. So karma refers to those actions which are prescribed by the scriptures. There are scriptural injunctions to perform those actions. So those are the actions which are permitted by scriptural injunctions. Vikarma is the exact opposite. Those actions which are prohibited, like we have the four regulative principles. So the opposite of the regulative principles, if we engage in intoxication or gambling, those are called vikarma. But if we follow the principles, then we are performing karma. But in both cases, there's a chance of being bound by the reactions of the work, regardless of whether it's positive or those are positive or negative reactions. There will always be bondage if we desire the fruits of actions. Like even in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedic literature, we have also seen in this chapter itself in 9.20 and 9.21, where Krishna says that those who merely follow the Karma Kanda portions and accumulate piety, for sense enjoyment in the heavenly planets, they can still go there, but after a certain point when their piety expires, they have to descend again to the material world, to the earth planet. So in both cases, even if we perform sinful actions, we will be bound by sinful reactions. Even if we perform the actions which are allowed by the scriptures, but if we do it merely for accumulating piety, which would enable us to engage in sense enjoyment in the heavenly planets, still that also causes bondage because we will get liberated to the higher planet, but once the piety expires, we'll have to return to this uh, middle planet. So after having obtained this human form of life, it's best to make use of it wisely without making mistakes like being obsessed with heavenly pleasures, which are temporary. So it's best if we follow Krishna's instructions about how to be detached from the fruits of actions. So that's what he has mentioned in the previous verse in 9.27. So in this verse, he's saying that by following what he has said in 9.27, we will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. Even the auspicious results cause bondage if we are attached to the fruits of the actions. The purport, one who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called Yukta. The technical term is Yukta Vairagya. This is further explained by Rupa Goswami as follows. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yadatam Upayunjata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.255. Rupa Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. Therefore, if actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna, then that is called Yukta Vairagya. So this is also been explained by Krishna in the 3rd chapter when Arjuna actually asked in the beginning of the chapter itself whether is it better for him to refrain from action or whether to perform action. Even this something similar, a very similar doubt still arises in his mind, even in the 18th chapter when he asks about the difference between sannyasa and tyaga. So even in that chapter, Krishna explains that sannyasa is totally refraining from actions, but tyaga is to renounce the fruits of actions. And then Krishna also says that tyaga is always better than sannyasa because even when someone tries to be a sannyasi merely by refraining from action, but if the person's mind is engaged in if the person's mind still contemplates sense objects and is contemplating about a sense enjoyment, then that person is called pretender or mithyachara. This is explained in chapter 3. So we can never cease from action. We cannot really abstain from performing any type of action. So what acharyas like Rupa Goswami say is that we can always continue performing our actions, but we have to perform it in a manner which is called Yukta Vairagya. In fact, the practices like chanting and hearing also, if we observe carefully, what we are being told to do is that we have to occupy ourselves with chanting and hearing in such a way that all our senses will always be occupied in performing acts which are related to Krishna consciousness. Because if we don't keep ourselves busy in Krishna conscious activities, we are going to engage in material sense pleasure. So we are having the same set of senses, whether it's the working senses or knowledge acquiring senses. We have the same set of senses, we have the same mind, same intelligence, and the same material body. So it's just a matter of prioritizing which should be done. So if we occupy ourselves with chanting and hearing about Krishna, then it will really help to develop our Krishna consciousness, and not just these spiritual activities. Even if we perform all our material duties with the Krishna conscious mindset, then that is called Yukta Vairagya. Actually situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind. And as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, he becomes completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, at the end, he becomes liberated, and this liberation is also specified. By this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahma Jyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. So we also saw on Tuesday in our Bhagavatam class that there are 5 types of liberation. Sayujya, Salokya, Sarupya, Samipya, and Shalshti. So the first type of liberation, Sayujya, is known as the so-called liberation of merging into the Brahma Jyoti. But our acharyas do not recognize that as a type of liberation, because it's related to this so-called oneness with the Supreme Lord, which is often propagated by the Mayavadis. We have also seen that in 15.7, Gita 15.7, Krishna himself says that all the living entities are his eternal fragmental parts. And therefore, the concept of Brahman, like living entities are also Brahman, in the sense that we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Brahman. However, we cannot equate ourselves to the Supreme Brahman. Supreme Brahman is always superior. We are merely parts and parcels of him, just like how we are like minute gold particles, and the Supreme Brahman is like the gold mine. So the main flaw with this Mayavadi interpretation of Sayujya Mukti, of merging into the Brahma Jyoti, is that they tend to regard themselves as equal to God. So that's where the real problem lies, because as long as we regard ourselves as being equal to the Supreme Lord, then there's no aspect of surrender in it. Our main realization should be that we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and our eternal dharma is to engage in the Lord's service, especially even after quitting this material body. We don't engage in devotional service merely to quit the material body now and enjoy later, but we have to still be engaged in his service after attaining the Supreme Abode. So that's the problem with this so-called Sayujya Mukti, which is not a form of Mukti according to Acharyas. Then we have the Salokya Mukti. Salokya meaning attaining the same planet, Loka. So when we attain the spiritual sky, like the Vaikunta planets or Goloka Dham, So that is called Salokya Mukti. Then we have Sarupya Mukti, like attaining the bodily features of the Supreme Lord. So Vaikuntavasis who attain Vaikuntha planets, we know that in Vaikuntha, Krishna is present there in his Narayana form, the 400 Narayana form. So those who attain Vaikuntha, they'll also be getting the 400 form, which is similar to Narayana. It doesn't mean that they become one and the same with Narayana. They merely get the bodily features of Narayana, like the transcendental body. So because our material body, we know that it's aging every moment. So that our original transcendental body is complete with the Satchidananda features, qualitatively similar to the Supreme Lord. So apart from Sarupya Mukti, there's this Samipya Mukti. The Samipya Mukti is one which enables us to engage in Krishna's association, like being a very close associate to Krishna. An example is like Arjuna. So if in the Vaikuntha planets, our relationship with Krishna, who is in the form of Narayana, is like very formal. But in Golokadam, the pastimes are much sweeter in the sense that our relationship becomes not so formal, but it's much closer to Krishna. And apart from Samipya, the fifth one is Sarsti, meaning attaining similar opulences as the Supreme Lord. Though the Supreme Lord blesses someone like Bali Maharaj with unlimited opulences, still only the Supreme Lord has all the opulences in unlimited quantities. Like as defined by Parashar Muni, there are 6 types of opulences. The opulence of wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. So only the Supreme Lord has all 6 of these opulences in unlimited quantity. But for those who attain Sharshti Mukti, they'll be getting opulences which are similar to the Supreme Lord, but of course it will be very limited. Even that limited opulence is only given due to the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So there's no question of becoming one and the same with the Supreme Lord, like what is being propagated by the impersonalist school of thought. So even in liberation, we are only going to attain the abode of the Lord, and that too to engage in his service even after we quit this material body. So by this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahmajyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. It's clearly mentioned here, Mam Upaisasi, he comes to me, back home, back to Godhead. So it's not stated like he merges into me, he becomes one with me. Those are not mentioned by Krishna. There are 5 different stages of liberation, and here it's specified that the devotee who has always lived his lifetime here under the direction of the Supreme Lord, as stated, has evolved to the point where he can, after quitting this body, go back to Godhead and engage directly in the association of the Supreme Lord. So our main objective should be to get the association of the Supreme Lord in his spiritual abode and to further engage in his service. Anyone who has no interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. As such, whatever he does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as service to the Lord. he does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. For ordinary persons, it is obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas, but although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually, it is not so. So, a true servant of the Lord will never think about his own welfare, because he knows that merely by satisfying the Supreme Lord, everything will be taken care of. When the Supreme Lord is satisfied, when he is happy, the entire kingdom can be happy. So there's one example of Krishna's pastime with the Pandavas, when the Pandavas were in fear about being cursed by Durvasa Muni when he was going to have a meal with them. For that day, Draupadi had already washed the Akshaya Patra. So when they were in fear that Durvasa Muni might curse them because they had no food left, at that time Krishna comes to their rescue, and he notices that there was some morsel of food which was sticking on the Akshaya Patra. So when he ate that morsel of food, then Durvasa Muni and all his disciples were full. So from that one example, we can see how the entire kingdom of God becomes happy and satisfied when the Supreme Lord is satisfied. So our main problem is that due to our material desires and our tendency, our inclination towards becoming Ishvara and Purusha, so we have been having our own desires as our main priority, and that's why we are caught in this mess in this material world. So only when we realize the importance of satisfying the Supreme Lord, only then we ourselves can attain peace. Because this has also been stated by Krishna in 529. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram surdam sarvabhutanam nyatmamam shanti mrichati. There are three aspects to be realized by those who want to attain peace. Number one, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, like he is the beneficiary of all the sacrifices. Though the sacrifices are done to please the demigods, actually Krishna is the beneficiary of those sacrifices, and it is him who grants the boons through the demigods. Then Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the supreme controller of all the planets and the demigods who are the presiding deities of each planet. Surdam Sarvabhutanam, he is the supreme well-wisher of all living entities. So those who realize all these aspects about Krishna, they can attain peace. So that's why a true servant of the Supreme Lord will always think about how he can serve the Supreme Lord to please him always. Whatever action he performs it as service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. So in the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas, the fruitive activities are mentioned. But even in this chapter, in 9.20, Krishna himself says that those who are too obsessed with the fruitive activities of the Vedas will ultimately they will accumulate piety for their actions, but that action also binds them, where they get to be elevated to the higher planets like Swargaloka, but from there they still have to return to this earth planet once the piety expires. For ordinary persons, it's obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. But although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. So this is simply because for a pure devotee, a true servant of the Supreme Lord is always engaged in actions which, but he is always detached from the fruits of actions. So he is always free from the bondage of the reactions of his work. So he's never bound by either positive or negative reactions of the work which he performs. It is said, therefore, by Vaishnava authorities that even the most intelligent person cannot understand the plans and activities of a pure devotee. The exact words are Tan Vyakya Kriya Mutra Vignya Na Bujaya. Chaitanya Saritamrita Madhya Lila 2339. A person who is thus always engaged in the service of the Lord or is always thinking and planning how to serve the Lord is to be considered completely liberated at present. And in the future, he going back home, back to Godhead is guaranteed. He is above all materialistic criticism, just as Krishna is above all criticism. So this is also related to the point where a true devotee attains the stage of being in Shuddha Sattva. Because even the mode of goodness binds us to the fruits of actions. Like in chapter 14, regarding the three modes of material nature, it is stated that even those who are in the mode of goodness, those who have developed qualities of being completely in the mode of goodness, even they will be elevated to the higher planets at most. It is not stated that those who are in the mode of goodness can attain the spiritual abode. So even if we look at the concept of prasadam, prasadam is what we consume after we honor prasadam after offering to Krishna. So the offering is made in such a way that Krishna is satisfied. Though those who claim to be vegan or vegetarian, they don't really follow what Krishna prefers. So the sinful reaction will always be there. That's why Krishna specifically says in 9.27, Yat karosi, yat asnasi, whatever you eat, you offer it to me, because even in this so-called vegetarian food, the sinful reaction is always there. Prabhupada has clearly explained regarding this in many of his lectures, because even the killing of plants also will also incur sinful reactions. But if we offer it to Krishna and honor the prasadam, then we are free from the sinful reactions. So that is the difference between developing the quality of goodness by eating vegetarian food and developing the quality of pure goodness or Shuddha Sattva by eating prasadam. So similarly, a true devotee is above all materialistic criticism, because he has transcended the three modes of material nature, even the mode of goodness. For human beings, we by default, our setting is that we are often dominated by the mode of passion. So that's why we often tend to be engaged in too much fruitive activities, especially those which are related to accumulating material wealth. Like a lot of people think that spiritual activity is a waste of time. It's better to keep working and earn money and to accumulate wealth. But they don't realize that someday everything is going to come to a standstill when the soul leaves the material body. We cannot take back even one bit of whatever wealth we have accumulated. Only our spiritual wealth will accompany us, whether we get another material body or whether we get regain our original spiritual body. So our tendency is like that. Due to the dominance of the mode of passion, we tend to be always engaged in fruitive activities and also focus too much on material wealth. But by doing so, we are being no better than animals, because basically we are only going to keep ourselves busy in the business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Without spiritual inquiry and devotional service, our business is never going to be too different from that of animals, because for human beings, if there's no spiritual inquiry and devotional service, then human beings are no better than animals, which are also engaged in the business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So it is important for us to first develop the mode of goodness from our default setting of being in the mode of passion. We have to develop the mode of goodness, and slowly we have to transcend even the mode of goodness, because even if we elevate ourselves to being in the mode of goodness completely, that would only guarantee our destination in the higher planets, still within this material world. So it's not worth wasting our precious human form of life to simply attain the higher planets, which is still within this material world. It is best to transcend even the mode of goodness, so that we can attain the spiritual sky. Especially Krishna's supreme abode, Goloka Vrindavan. So even that has been explained in chapter 14. Krishna explains regarding the three modes of material nature, and towards the end, in 14.26, Krishna says, those who are engaged in devotional service, in 14.26, he says those who are engaged in devotional service can gradually transcend the three modes and attain the mode of pure goodness. That is Shuddha Sattva, meaning transcending even the mode of goodness. Now 9.29, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu Ame Dveshu Astina Priya Ye Vadanti Tu Mam Bhaktya Maite Teshu Cha Pyamam. Sama, equally disposed, Aham, I, Sarva Bhuteshu, to all living entities. Na, no one, me, to me, Dvesha, hateful, Asti, is, na, no, Priya, dear, ye, those who, Bhajanti, render transcendental service, to but, mam, unto me. Bhaktya, in devotion, my, I in me, te, such persons, teshu, in them, cha, also, api, certainly, aham, I. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. One may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not discrimination, it is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has special interest in his own children. So not just in one's own children, even within our children, parents normally have their favorites. Like if there's a very rebellious child in the family who does not respect the parents, it's only natural that even the parents won't really be able to always confront, because not to say confront, even if they try to have some dialogue with the rebellious child, that child might still consider it as a confrontation, and the child might rebel further compared to the other obedient children. So even for parents, it is only natural for them to favor the children who are obedient, but that doesn't mean that they are being discriminative, because it is just that when the child is rebellious, at times it is best to let go for a while until the child himself realizes. So Krishna does not discriminate, but he reciprocates according to how we interact with him. The proof of this is that we know regarding these Purusha avatars. The first Purusha avatar is Mahavishnu, followed by Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and followed by Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Kshirodakashayi Vishnu resides in the heart of all living entities as Paramatma. So that that refers to all living entities. So in that sense, Krishna does not discriminate, because he accompanies all the conditioned living entities as Paramatma. So that itself is a proof that he does not discriminate. He accompanies all the living entities, but he just sits there in the heart of all living entities, waiting for the living entity to turn his attention towards him. So he does not discriminate. He gives us complete freedom, and he reciprocates how according to how we interact with him. So for those who choose to be always engaged in sense enjoyment, they are free to do so. But even in the heart of those non-devotees, Krishna resides as Paramatma. So that is the proof of how he's being fair to everyone. He does his duty as the Supreme Lord of all living entities, but at the same time, he does not interfere in the freedom of the living entities. So when devotees engage in devotional service, and when they devote all their time and energy to Krishna, then Krishna reciprocates similarly. But even for non-devotees, Krishna still accompanies them as Paramatma, waiting for them to turn their attention towards him. So this is not discrimination, it is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every living entity, in whatever form, is his son. And so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. So all the living entities are similar in the sense that we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Our true identity is that of our spirit soul. That is our true identity. It doesn't matter what material body we have, because we have got this human form of a material body after taking up lakhs of other material bodies. So even the animals which are embodied in the animal form of life, they are also qualitatively similar to us because they are also spirit souls. They are also living entities who are also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord treats all the living entities equally. The Lord claims that every living entity in whatever form is his son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He is just like a cloud which pours rain all over, regardless of whether it falls on rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives specific attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they are always transcendently situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, "My they are in me." Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. So there's no discrimination, but it's all based on reciprocity. Even for non-devotees who are living in this world, the same supply of rain and sunshine is available to everyone. But the only difference is that devotees make it a point to devote their time and energy to understand Krishna and also to love Krishna, and therefore he reciprocates. But for non-devotees, Krishna is just waiting in their hearts in as Paramatma until those non-devotees are going to pay attention to him. This also explains the words "Ye yatamam prapadyante tam tataiva bhajamyam." So this is stated in 4.11. Whoever surrenders to me, proportionately I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotee are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. So that is our true identity. When we being the eternal fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord, because our true identity is that we are spirit souls who are eternal fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord. We are also like the diamond in the golden ring, but we chose to degrade ourselves from our original position due to our material desires. So once we regain our original identity and regain our association with the Supreme Lord in his spiritual abode, then we can also it's not about attaining glorification for ourselves, but merely to regain our original position. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there's no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there's no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity, but in the personalist philosophy, there is. So here, Prabhupada is indicating that even through this verse, in 9.29, when Krishna is implying reciprocation, so there is the validation of the personalist philosophy. Because if we talk about impersonalism and everything being one and the same, then there is no reciprocation. The Supreme Lord is supreme and we are his servants. So only when we distinguish these identities of we being individuals and the Supreme Lord also being an individual, only then the aspect of reciprocation becomes valid. So indirectly, Prabhupada is implying that what Krishna says in this verse and also in 4.11, ye yatamam prapadyante tam strateva bhajamyam. So in these, through these verses, Krishna himself validates the personalist philosophy. The example is often given that the Lord is like a desire tree, and whatever one wants from this desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotee. The Lord's
Tapi
reciprocation.
sekarang suara tak boleh keluar.
Keluar sini.
Sini mana?
Keluar dah.
Hmm.
Saya pakai Bluetooth. Nanti saya try tengok bawa satu kabel. Esok saya try tengok kalau tu saya try tengok ada kalau contoh ada satu kabel lagi lain lah.
Oh.
Ah.
Tapi sekarang kalau Bluetooth dia keluar lah
Keluar
suara.
sana.
Sorry,
Kalau
Prabhuji,
nak
please,
tengok TV tu tak keluar. lah.
Prabhuji, please mute.
Now got macam Bluetooth pun got.
Boleh?
Tapi sekarang dia besar tu tak lebih besar lagi.
Boleh? Ikut ni.
Tekan mana?
Volume ni.
Hah?
Volume up and down ni.
Oh,
Dia tak suara, dia tak cakap lagi.
oh bukan skrin tu tak lebih besar.
Skrin tak boleh, dia ikut dia ni.
Oh,
Jadi,
oh,
macam ni,
okey
boleh
lah. Macam ni lah.
Dia ikut yang ni lah, scale.
Okey je.
Boleh?
Siapa tadi dia tak boleh buka? Saya pun heran. Kata, saya tak
The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world, where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. So though we are trapped in this material world, we can still elevate ourselves to the spiritual world, not just after quitting this material body, but even while being in this material body, even while being in this material world, we can create the atmosphere of the spiritual world by engaging in devotional service. And that's why that is what we see in all the important dhams like Vrindavan, Mathura, and even the many other dhams like the Char dhams. Okay, it's going to be 8:30 now. Shall we have a break for 5 minutes?
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, thanks.
Hello friends, welcome. Welcome to some.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Sadhu.
Hare Krishna. So we'll continue with 9.30. Api chetsu duracharo bhajate mamananyavak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasto hi sa. Api, even chet, if su durachara, one committing the most abominable actions, bhajate is engaged in devotional service, mam unto me, ananyavak, without deviation, sadhu, a saint, eva, certainly, sa he, mantavya, is to be considered, samyak, completely, vyavastha, situated in determination, he, certainly, sa he. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. The word su durachara used in this verse is very significant and we should understand it properly. When a living entity is conditioned, he has two kinds of activities. One is conditional, the other one is constitutional. As for protecting the body or abiding by the rules of society and state, certainly there are different activities, even for the devotees, in connection with the conditional life, and such activities are called conditional. So these activities are like we are bound to perform these activities merely because as part of our material affairs, just because we are trapped in this material body, so we are forced to perform these activities as part of our daily material affairs, though they may not seem very though they might not appear to be completely spiritual, Besides this, the living entity who is fully conscious of his spiritual nature and is engaged in Krishna consciousness or the devotional service of the Lord has activities which are called transcendental. Such activities are performed in his constitutional position, and they are technically called devotional service. Now, in the conditioned state, sometimes devotional service and the conditional service in relation to the body will parallel one another. But then again, sometimes these activities become opposed to one another. As far as possible, a devotee is very cautious so that he does not do anything that could disrupt his wholesome condition. He knows that perfection in his activities depends on his progressive realization of Krishna consciousness. So a very simple example related to this, we can just take the example of honoring prasadam. So even in many of Prabhupada's lectures, he has explained this clearly that we can never completely refrain from engaging in sinful behavior. Like even eating vegetables it also incurs sin. That's why Krishna has mentioned that it is best to offer everything to him before we consume it. So that is one example where we can never be completely detached from engaging in sinful behavior as long as we are trapped in this material body. Every day, whenever we are engaged in our daily material affairs, we will be somehow forced to engage in even some form of sinful activity, even unknowingly. But if we are firm in our resolve to engage in devotional service and Krishna consciousness, then according to Krishna in this verse, such devotees are still considered as sadhus, because there is this distinction between what the devotee does in as part of a conditional duty and constitutional duty. So the devotional service which is done as part of our constitutional duty helps to sort of nullify the so-called sinful behavior which is done sometimes unknowingly due to our conditional duties, which are part of our daily material affairs. As far as possible, a devotee is very cautious so that he does not do anything that could disrupt his wholesome condition. He knows that perfection in his activities depends on his progressive realization of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, however, it may be seen that a person in Krishna consciousness commits some act which may be taken as most abominable socially or politically, but such a temporary fall down does not disqualify him. So even for devotees who, especially for neophyte devotees, they might be engaged in devotional service for some time, and then due to some distractions or maybe their disillusion with bhakti, maybe because as we have seen in chapter 7, 7.16, there are four types of people who surrender to Krishna: Arto, Jignasul, Artalti, and Jnani. So those devotees who might have surrendered to Krishna due to being in distress, or because of they are being in search of material wealth. So especially for such devotees, when they don't see the instant results, they might become disillusioned with the practice of bhakti. So there is always this risk of a temporary fall down, However, Krishna assures that such temporary fall down does not disqualify such devotees, because even those devotees, though they have some material motivation to approach Krishna, Krishna still appreciates the fact that they are willing to surrender to him. So the temporary fall down does not disqualify or completely degrade such people. It is just a matter of time before they regain their Krishna consciousness, because somehow it will happen. That's why it is stated here that it is a temporary fall down. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that if a person falls down but is wholeheartedly engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, the Lord, being situated within his heart, purifies him and excuses him from that abomination. The material contamination is so strong that even a yogi fully engaged in the service of the Lord sometimes becomes ensnared. But Krishna consciousness is so strong that such an occasional fall down is at once rectified. So here it's stated that even a yogi fully engaged in service of the Lord sometimes becomes ensnared, but Krishna consciousness is so strong that such an occasional fall down is at once rectified. We have also seen from chapter 6 in 6.47, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gatinam taratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo matah. In chapter 6 on Dhyana Yoga, when Krishna explains to Arjuna about how a person should engage in Dhyana Yoga, the process of meditation, after hearing all those elaborate processes and all those conditions, even Arjuna himself kind of gives up when he says that how is it possible to perform these processes, because the mind is so strong and obstinate. Controlling the mind is even more difficult than controlling the wind. So that's why towards the end of the chapter, Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga is the topmost form of yoga. And there's also this comparison between Vishwamitra and Haridas Thakur. Vishwamitra, who was a meditator, a yogi who was engaged in meditation, he did he mastered the process of Dhyana Yoga. However, that was not enough to prevent his fall down when he was ensnared. But in the case of Haridas Thakur, though he was kind of being in the story of Haridas Thakur, we know that there was conspiracy to trap him, but he did not fall for it, because he was completely absorbed in Bhakti Yoga merely by chanting the holy name. And even the prostitute who was sent to trap him was purified when she kept hearing the holy name being chanted for the 3 consecutive nights. So even her heart became completely cleansed. So that is the superiority of the process of Bhakti Yoga. So for those who are always engaged in Bhakti Yoga, for them, the temporary fall down will never disqualify them. Therefore, the process of devotional service is always a success. No one should deride the devotee for some accidental fall down from the ideal path, for, as explained in the next verse, such occasional fall downs will be stopped in due course, as soon as a devotee is completely situated in Krishna consciousness. In the example of Haridas Thakur, actually not just in his example, even in the example of Ajamila, the magic of the holy name can be clearly seen. Because in the case of Ajamila also, he kind of wasted his entire life by engaging in sinful behavior. But towards the end of his life, when he merely chanted the name of Narayana, though he was only calling his son, when he but since he indirectly chanted the name of Narayana, at least he had this amount of God consciousness, at least to name his son as Narayana. So that itself became like a blessing due to the mercy of the Lord. So when he saw the Yamadutas approaching him, when he simply called out to his son, and since his son was named Narayana, the Vishnudutas came to save him, and he was given a second chance. So that's why the holy name itself is so potent to save all devotees from any temporary fall down. Therefore, a person who is situated in Krishna consciousness and is engaged with determination in the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, should be considered to be in the transcendental position, even if by chance or accident he is found to have fallen. So it is also to be noted that these important keywords like fall down by chance or accident are being used here, because as mentioned in the beginning of the purport, we as conditioned living entities, we are always bound by both our conditional duties and also our constitutional duties. So the temporary fall downs are often due to our conditional duties, which are related to our often related to our material duties. So we may not do them knowingly or intentionally, but sometimes we are forced to do it even unknowingly. The words Sadhur Eva, he is saintly, are very emphatic. They are a warning to the non-devotees that because of an accidental fall down, a devotee should not be derided. He should still be considered saintly, even if he has accidentally fallen down. And the word Mantavya is still more emphatic. If one does not follow this rule and derides a devotee for his accidental fall down, then one is disobeying the order of the Supreme Lord. The only qualification of a devotee is to be unflinchingly and exclusively engaged in devotional service. So as long as the devotee is sincere in being engaged in devotional service, so even the accidental fall downs, the temporary fall downs are forgiven, and somehow the devotee will regain his even if he used to be very enthusiastic, and if he comes to a point where he becomes disillusioned with the process of bhakti for a while, Krishna will somehow reactivate his enthusiasm. In the Narasimha Purana, the following statement is given: Bhagavati cha harav ananya cheta vishamanino api virajate manushyaha nai shasha kalusha chabi kadachit timira parabhavatam upaiti chandraha. The meaning is that even if one fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord is sometimes found engaged in abominable activities, these activities should be considered to be like the spots that resemble the mark of a rabbit on the moon. Such spots do not become an impediment to the diffusion of moonlight. Similarly, the accidental fall down of a devotee from the path of saintly character does not make him abominable. So this is especially true in the case of in our case, like we being Kali Jivas, there's always the risk of falling down, no matter how much we try to be engaged in devotional service, because as the Kali Yuga keeps advancing, we can see that as we have seen in our previous sessions also, we have discussed regarding the symptoms of Kali Yuga, mentioned in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam. So in the scriptures itself, the symptoms of Kali Yuga have been mentioned, but what we are seeing now itself is like much worse than what has been predicted in the scriptures. So the situation always keeps going from bad to worse in such a way that at some point it is going to be completely impossible for any aspiring devotee to practice bhakti, because there will always be the risk of falling down due to like external influences, like even if we try to remain vegetarian or completely abstain from onion, garlic, even those the other vegetarians or so-called vegans, they might say that no, this is also a vegetable, why don't you take it? So all these type of not to say temptations, this type of pressures will always remain there, it to the point where it will our resolve to engage in bhakti will always be challenged by all these influences which are not very helpful for bhakti. So even if such things happen, the temporary fall down does not degrade anyone or disqualify anyone. On the other hand, one should not misunderstand that a devotee in transcendental devotional service can act in all kinds of abominable ways. This verse only refers to an accident due to the strong power of material connections. So that's why even in the earlier parts, Prabhupada was using words like by chance or by accident, because the influence of Kali, and also due to the advancement of Kali, all these are making it more and more difficult for us to engage in bhakti, especially in pure bhakti. No matter how much we try, due to external influences or disturbances, it becomes more and more challenging. But if there is a temporary fall down, because the risk is always there, and even if some devotee is forced even unknowingly into a temporary fall down, that is forgiven by Krishna. But it is only for an accidental fall down. It doesn't mean that just because someone is a devotee who is engaged in devotional service, then it's okay for him to fall down and stand up as he wishes. Krishna only forgives the temporary fall down which are accidental. Devotional service is more or less a declaration of war against the illusory energy. As long as one is not strong enough to fight the illusory energy, there may be accidental fall downs. But when one is strong enough, he is no longer subjected to such fall downs. As previously explained, no one should take advantage of this verse and commit nonsense and think that he is still a devotee. If he does not improve in his character by devotional service, then it is to be understood that he is not a high devotee. So it is very easy to distinguish between devotees and non-devotees. As we know, there are two forms of Krishna's energy. His internal energy, his superior internal energy, and his inferior material energy. His internal energy is spiritual. So by engaging in bhakti, devotees come under the influence of Krishna's superior spiritual energy, his internal energy. But for those non-devotees who are not who are yet to realize the importance of bhakti, they are also under the influence of Krishna's energy, but they are under the influence of Krishna's material energy. It is only due to illusion that they are thinking that they are enjoying as Ishwaras and Purushas. Those non-devotees, they are thinking that they are exploiting this material nature. However, the exact opposite is true, because it is the material nature which is exploiting all conditional living entities. So in both cases, whether for non-devotees or devotees, we will always be subject to the influence of Krishna in two forms. Either in the case of non-devotees, they are going to be subject to Krishna's inferior material energy, and in the case of devotees, devotees are going to be subject to Krishna's superior internal energy, his spiritual energy. So in both cases, even when non-devotees refuse to acknowledge the existence of Krishna and his influence over them, that doesn't change anything, because like all these so-called rationalists and atheists, they might say that everything comes from nature, but even when they say that, they are merely depending on Krishna's material energy. So ironically, they still require Krishna's material energy to deny the existence of Krishna. So that is their illusion state. So when a non-devotee somehow when his heart is cleansed and when he becomes an aspiring devotee, then the war against illusory energy starts. Prabhupada gives this analogy of the tug of war. Like, even when an aspiring devotee starts to engage in bhakti, then still the material energy of Krishna will still try to attract him, to force him towards becoming a non-devotee. However, it is up to the individual to decide whether he wants to end this material bondage and this vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease by being fixed in Krishna consciousness, or whether to go back to being a slave of Krishna's material energy and suffer in this vicious cycle. So it's very simple. We just have to choose what is best for us, and Krishna has clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita what is best for us. He has clearly stated that it is important for us to get out of this dukkalayam ashashvatam, and the only way to do that is to surrender to him. However, for us, since we are trapped in this Kali Yuga, it is always very challenging for us to be fixed in Krishna consciousness, because there will always be a lot of distractions and external influences which might discourage us from being fixed firmly in Krishna consciousness. However, it is entirely up to us. As Prabhupada has said, it is a tug of war, because the more we try to be fixed in Krishna consciousness, the influence of the material energy will also keep increasing, and it will also keep attracting us towards its influence to turn us away from Krishna consciousness. However, we should not be fooled by the influence of the material energy, because after gaining this precious human form of life, after going through so many lakhs of material bodies, it will be extremely foolish to fall prey to the influence of the material energy. So that's why Krishna says that it is okay if a devotee, if there are temporary fall downs, accidental fall downs for a devotee, as long as the devotee is firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness, such fall downs are tolerated by Krishna. But it is to be noted that Krishna only tolerates the accidental fall down of a devotee. So even if such accidental fall downs happen, Krishna helps the devotee to regain his enthusiasm in bhakti. So that is the assurance that Krishna is giving in this verse. However, it should not be misused, because even in the purport, Prabhupada also keeps reiterating important keywords like fall down by chance and accidental fall down. So we have completed 9.30. That's all for today. Thank you for attending. So any questions or comments? Hello, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hmm?
Thank you for the nice class.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
No questions.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So we'll meet again tomorrow for my session. Tomorrow 7:30. Thank you.
Tomorrow what session, Prabhu? Tomorrow is Friday.
Yeah, actually tomorrow is my session. I'm actually replacing Patita Taran Prabhu's class
Oh, okay.
on Tuesday, and tomorrow is my actual session. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare